welcome back to another episode of A Wild Mystery Podcast Appears, where we discuss mysteries, histories, and occasionally conspiracies. I'm your host, Belle.
And I'm your co-host, Dolly.
Today, we are reviewing the case of Urban Legends from Every State, Episode 1, Alabama. Today, we're going to be addressing two urban legends from Alabama, which are the Hell's Gate Bridge in Oxford, Alabama, as well as the Dead Children's Playground in Huntsville, Alabama.
The opinions expressed in this podcast are the sole views and opinions of Belle and Ollie with a Wild Mystery Podcast Appears. These views are not intended to harm, offend, defame, slander, or negatively represent any individuals involved in the case.
Hello everyone, this is Editing Belle. We forgot to record the trigger warnings when we recorded this episode. So Ollie's not feeling very well, so I'm going to step in and do my own. The trigger warnings for today's episode are weird-ass facts, racism, discussion of the civil rights movement, cemeteries, ghosts, dead children, death, hauntings, and brief discussions of child murder. If any of those topics are going to be sensitive to you, please do not listen, but please just be aware that they are more of general discussions of the urban legends surrounding those events, none of which are technically corroborated. But either way, if you don't feel comfortable listening to today's episode, I encourage you to check out one of our other episodes for your enjoyment.
Alabama's got a pretty interesting history.
It does.
Especially if you're into civil rights.
Yes.
Which you should be.
Yep. So Alabama is the 22nd state within the U.S., becoming a state in 1819. And it is in the Midwest, call it the Southwest, so let's be real, it's the Southwest of the United States.
Some of the stuff we might be bouncing around in history.
Yeah.
In why can't I find dates? In 1965, the Voting Rights March occurred in Alabama. After winning the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964-1965, Martin Luther King Jr. Was focusing some of his attention on black voter registration in Selma. And then in March, protesters began a 54-mile march from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama's state capital. And they were led by John Lewis and then were met with violence on the Edmund Pettus Bridge in an event now known as Bloody Sunday.
As a surprise to no one.
Yep. And there is now, the Selma to Montgomery National Historic Trail was established by Congress in 1996. And it is part of the National Trail System administered by the National Park Service, so is maintained and protected,
Nationally
I guess,
recognized.
by, yeah.
Nickname for the state is the Heart of Dixie. Of course, as Ollie mentioned, the capital is Montgomery. And in December of 1955, Rosa Parks was arrested for refusing to give up her seat on a Montgomery bus to a white passenger. Her conviction, of course, sparked the Montgomery bus boycott, which young Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. helped organize. Alabama is the 24th most populous state within the U.S., with a total 1,500 miles of inland waterways. It has one of the most waterways within the U.S. Alabama is named for the Alabama tribe, which was one of the Native American groups from that area.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And Dixie, referring to it being called the Heart of Dixie, is a nickname for Southern states, especially the Confederate states, which left the Union during the Civil War. And it's called the Heart of Dixie because Montgomery, Alabama was the first Confederate capital.
I'm gonna just say right now, I'm browsing around on alabama.travel and I want to visit Alabama. Like this, it looks gorgeous. I mean, I miss Georgia so much, and Alabama is reminding me of Georgia, but just with the trees and the stuff. Helen Keller was born and lived in Alabama. That's just, randomly
Hank
found
Williams, country singer, and Nat King Cole.
Bit of a southern accent there. I caught.
Huh?
Bit of a southern accent there.
Oh, for me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I slip into it sometimes. We're not going to talk about it. This is cool. NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center is in Huntsville, Alabama, and you can actually tour the nearby U.S. Space and Rocket Center, which is the world's largest spaceflight museum and home to Space Camp. That's actually really cool.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
There are a lot of civil rights historic sites in Alabama. There's the Tuskegee Airmen National Historic Site. Actually, that's probably not really classified as civil rights, but tells the story of the African American men of the 332nd Fighter Group of the U.S. Army Corps, known as the Red Tails. That's a big number there. They flew in World War II and fought Nazis overseas. This site says, while fighting segregation at home. Yeah.
Yep.
We do not treat our black soldiers. Well, we don't treat any of our soldiers the way that they should be treated. But the African American soldiers have had an especially rough time.
Yeah. Couple interesting. Oh, okay. What? Here are 5 interesting facts about Alabama. Windshield wipers were invented. Actually,
What?
In Alabama. I'm gonna go from least to most interesting.
Okay.
And I wish I would have. No. Alabama has the most snails of any U.S. state by far.
The most snails?
How is that even tracked? Yes.
How?
Questions. Alabama was the first state to recognize Christmas as an official holiday, which is surprising.
What?
The first 911 call was made in Alabama.
Wow. These are
you aren't even ready for this
milestones that I have never considered.
Yeah.
Okay.
You aren't even ready for this next one. Alabama had a bear wrestling problem in the 1990s. I have so many questions.
My first thought was Teddy Roosevelt living there. It's the year of Alabama birding, and there's a whole world of wonderful sights and sounds waiting for you here in Alabama. All you have to do is look and listen.
You had a bit of a Bama accent right there. I'm proud of you. That was good.
All you have to do is look and listen. Find yourself among the more than 400 species of birds. Wait. No, yeah.
Oh.
That was right. That soar through our bright blue skies and swim in our crystal blue waters.
Most religious U.S. state. That does not surprise me.
No.
Home to the only bookstore in the world to sell only signed copies. That's fascinating.
When I'm telling you I want to go to Alabama.
Money. Yeah.
They have the endangered red-cocketed woodpecker.
That's not a nice fact, though. Many places in Alabama have names of Native American origin. That's not a good thing. This state has the only alcoholic state beverage. That does not even remotely surprise me. Alabama has an opossum that reportedly predicts the weather.
Excellent. What's its name?
I don't know.
Tell me its name.
It doesn't say. I'm gonna look it up.
Well, you're looking that up, and while I'm still on birds, the Alabama state bird is the northern flicker, which is kind of a pretty bird.
Interesting, really, because I read it. What I saw, it was the yellowhammer.
Also known as the yellowhammer. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's been the symbol of Alabama since the Civil War. Also known as the Yellowhammer State, I guess.
His name is Sam.
I love him.
Oh, yes. Okay, hold on. Sam is a possum that is known to predict whether or not spring will be coming early to North Alabama. Like his friend Punxsutawney Phil, Sam made his prediction on or around February 2nd every year. Unlike Phil, Sam has an astounding 25-1 record of being right, and that was in 2020.
Are we going to post a picture of Sam?
I will find a picture of Sam to post. That is hilarious. Okay. Moving off of, because it's, if anyone's curious as to how Ollie and I do research, it's very eclectic.
Yeah,
and it's
especially right now.
Very much moving from topic to topic and just going down whatever, like, fever dream.
The Alabama state flower is the camellia, which is a beautiful flower, by the way. I'm looking at pictures of it right now.
Is it? So, but today we are going to be referring to the urban legends within Alabama, and we're going to be primarily focusing on Hell's Gate Bridge in Oxford, Alabama, the Dead Children's Playground.
Oh, boy.
And those are the ones that we are going to be focusing on today. So, starting with the Hell's Gate Bridge, as I mentioned, the Hell's Gate Bridge is located in Oxford, Alabama on Old Boiling Springs Road, and it crosses the Chocoloco Creek. Now, this is pretty much where the factual information fucking ends. I kid you not. There's like, so, also, I didn't know this, there's a bridge finder website as well as bridge reports sites, like, of all the bridges and, like, their statuses and, like, when they were built and shit, which is really cool.
Yeah, you can look up literally every commercial plane that is operated.
It's super fascinating. So from a report that I read, it began construction in 1912 and it finished in 1917. However, these are actually unconfirmed dates, as some say that the style of the bridge is more common from the 1890s, but bridgereports.com says that it was built in the 1930s.
What? So,
very broad range of dates. As of September in 2002, the inspection report for the bridge itself denoted the overall condition as poor, with the superstructure condition rating being serious, marking 3 out of 9 categories. The condition, which is funny because the substructure condition rating was satisfactory, was 6 out of 9. The deck condition rating was fair, and the sufficiency rating was 2 out of 100. Great. It's a truss-style bridge, and the reason that the bridge is named Hell's Gate Bridge is that supposedly if you stop, and so if you drive across the bridge and you turn off your headlights and you just in the middle of the bridge.
Why would you want to drive across it?
Well, this is like when the history and the urban legend surfaced, which is in the 1950s, 1960s, that the legends started to arise.
Okay.
Is that it was still drivable. Start there. It was still drivable at the time. But the legend says that if you drive across the bridge, you stop in the middle, you turn off your headlights, and then you turn around. Apparently, it looks like it's the entrance to hell, with apparently the devil's number being seen. And it's very, like, fiery red, kind of like, but there's, I don't know.
Okay.
I have a lot of questions. And in addition, it also has a ghost legend, which in the 1950s, a young couple lost their lives on the bridge. Now, there's a couple of different things that I found. Again, none of them corroborated, so I'm going to talk very broadly and not with a lot of detail. Is that apparently they careened off the side of the bridge or lost control of the vehicle. Or, when he was crossing the bridge, he turned off the headlights to scare his girlfriend, said huddle close them, whatever. But, anyway, however that happened.
The way that most supernatural episodes start.
Basically. So they careened off the side of the bridge, and their vehicle was found a ways away. Now, mind you, this is a creek, but apparently at the time of this incident, there had been a significant storm in the days past, so the water level had risen. This is also 1950, so vehicles are not as large.
Yeah.
depending
Okay.
on which type of vehicle it was. Um, but
Generally not as safe, though.
yeah, generally not as safe.
Which, if you are the kind of person who's like, why do we make cars out of fiberglass? So that you live.
Yeah. The whole point is that the vehicle absorbs the shock, not you.
It's a feature, not a bug.
Yes. So, now, there's a lot of, as with most urban legends, basically no corroboration. As far as I could find, there was no record of any crash happening. There was no evidence of any damages that would indicate a car going over the side into the creek. There was no news reports of any people who had gone over and drowned. One thing said that, there's reports of, both the guy and his girlfriend, both people died. One says that the girl died and he lived, but he wandered around like a madman for the rest of his days and wouldn't say what he saw or, whatever shiz in it. But there's the only consistency is that, again, if you, on a dark night, you stop on the bridge and you turn off all your lights, and this, again, is in when you're in a car, is that you will get a unexpected passenger.
I don't like that.
And basically saying that it's more consistently the woman, which, again, I don't know how I feel about that. It's always a woman in white, or it's just almost always a ghostly woman. I don't know how I feel about that.
Or a child.
Ugh. I wasn't even bringing up the children, but like, okay. But basically, is that one, they're saying it's either a member of the couple, it's typically the woman, will appear and then leave a wet spot on the back seats or whatever, and like one of the seats in your car, and it will like leave a wet spot.
I think my plan is to never drive across this bridge.
Well, it is now completely undrivable. They've actually put cement blocks in front of it so that it's like damn near impossible to get to.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost impossible to get to. It's actually...
Even on foot?
It's pretty damn hard to get to.
Okay.
But apparently a lot of people still take their Ouija boards and try and do seances. Now...
Ghoul boys.
Huh?
The ghoul boys, I'm sure, would love that.
And the bridge was officially closed to traffic in late 2005, early 2006, when the new road, known as Leon Smith Parkway, was built from Friendship Road to the Oxford Exchange, where there's a new outdoor mall.
Oh.
And so they basically made it completely impassable. You can still walk to it, but it is definitely hard to find. And I've also seen pictures where it's like overgrown, quite big. But there's like damage to the wood going across it now, so it's like there's potential to like fall through.
I wouldn't step on this bridge, but I'm afraid of heights, so
yeah. But it's like, honestly, it's a very pretty truss bridge if it weren't so like supposedly creepy.
I mean, listen, anything that is decaying is inherently creepy.
Yeah, a little bit. But it seems like it's in a very beautiful area when you look at pictures of it. Make sure you look specifically for the one in Alabama, not the one in New York.
Yeah.
But basically, it's more of a local Oxford urban legend. In fact, I'm actually kind of surprised that I found it at all. But where I feel like a lot of urban legends typically have some point that is actually based off of factual information, I literally could not find any news articles denoting that a couple had died on or surrounding an incident regarding this bridge. Could not find anything. And if you actually go to the Google reviews of the bridge, I kid you not, there's a Google reviews page for it. It's really funny.
Beautiful walking old bridge.
There's one comment from one guy. Hold on. That I specifically want you to look at.
It's easier to get to if you park behind Publix.
It's a comment made by Henry, and I won't say his last name because I don't have his permission. And he says, I drove across the bridge my first time in 1979. It was one lane, and when you met a crowd, people would alternate one car north, one car south. Every vehicle I owned from 79 to 2000 made a trip across this bridge. I had a Ram 2500, and that was the scariest I had to drive across the bridge. You could hear the timbers creak and the metal groan. Mrs. C, the lady who lived just ahead, would put out a massive Christmas display, and I stopped a few times to talk to her. She passed and more changes came. Kids vandalized and burned her home down, which I don't know. I was like, okay, that's kind of random. But it doesn't seem like... this is the other person. It's by Joey. Boiling Springs Bridge is the original name, not passable to traffic or pedestrians, now accessible from Chicoloco Park. No one ever died there as far back as I could find, and my great-grandfather remembered when it opened in 1919. So again, uncorroborated date of when this bridge was said to have been built. I'm so confused. If anything, it was more just like, what is this information? I don't understand. Why is there no consistency?
Yeah. It's the thing I'm seeing that is consistent in these Google reviews is very hard to find.
Yeah.
There's this one review by Emily, again, I won't state the last name, who says, among very beautiful bridge, but also very scary. If walk on the bridge, one has said, you'll see a couple that when they drove across the bridge, the car fell off and they both died, but only if you drive across, the couple will appear inside the car and they will scare you and make you drive off the side of the bridge. This has only happened in the dark. I strongly recommend that you make the right choices and please do not go on this bridge. It is very scary and dangerous. It has been said that if you go on the bridge but back up from the middle, the couple will haunt you if you don't make it across.
Yeah, I saw that one too. It was written really weird, so I was like,
yeah,
I don't know about that.
And I'm trying to figure out how you would drive off this bridge. I don't think you could.
Well, and it's like the way that it's built, it's like it's metal.
Yeah.
On the sides, because it's a truss bridge. So it's like you'd have to be going a pretty decent speed to break through.
Yeah, and I definitely saw some comments that were like, the city should restore this bridge, which I guess would be cool.
Which it has been condemned. And I believe in 2017, 2018, they were talking about tearing it down completely or restoring it, but so far no movement has been made on that. Which isn't surprising because government and priorities. So, that's going to do it for Hell's Gate Bridge, and we will move on to our next topic after a quick ad break. So, transitioning topics from Hell's Gate Bridge to the Dead Children's Playground. We are now moving towards Maple Hill Park, which is located in Huntsville, Alabama. They have an approximate population of 217,000. The playground itself is located next to Maple Hill Cemetery. It was founded in 1822, originally on 2 acres. It is the oldest and the largest cemetery in Huntsville, and it currently spans nearly 100 acres. Like, can you fathom the size of, like, you know where I live, that's just shy of an acre, it's 0.88, I'm not gonna include that bit, but, like, 100 of those, that's how big that cemetery is. It has over 80,000 burials, and has several notable figures buried there, including 5 state of Alabama governors and 5 U.S. senators. It is located east of Twickenham Historic District. There are a lot of old burials that are there, but they're really hard to document because of either they didn't have headstones or the headstones have been deteriorated and then were eventually thrown out over time. Although it's a really that's really shocking to me that people would like throw away headstones and stuff, because it's like, well, that's rude.
Yeah.
But it happened. The oldest grave marker that is currently intact belongs to Mary Frances Atwood, who died as an infant, unfortunately. It was used a lot during the Civil War, and it is the burial site of 187 unknown Confederate soldiers and an unknown number of Union soldiers.
Mm.
Most of the Confederate soldiers died early in the war due to disease or in training accidents close to Huntsville. Now, here's where I was kind of crazy to me, is that their names are actually known. They just don't know who is in which graves.
Okay. Fun. Oh, and I guess, we wouldn't have the DNA just on file like we do soldiers nowadays.
Nope. And it officially earned its name Maple Hill Cemetery in 1901. It was formerly known as the Burial Ground, which is metal as shit. And then we have the playground itself. I couldn't find any good information on when the actual playground it was built. It does appear modern in design, and so it has been updated in recent years. We'll get to this later, but it was actually torn down in 2000 or somewhere around 2007, and then they rebuilt it with like more modern stuff. But based on the fact that it's now 2007 and the current pictures I've seen, I think it's been updated since then, because it looks more like a 2018 playground, not a 2007. Because you know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this playground is considered the most haunted site in Alabama. Common sightings include glowing orbs, child ghosts, and swings moving without being touched when there was no wind blowing. And also people report hearing children's laughter. As I mentioned earlier, the playground was disabled in 2007, but due to local outcry, it was put back. Basically, it was like, I don't know, it's like the locals like really enjoyed it, and they were like, nah, you ain't taking this shit, put it back. Put it back. I just love that. And as is commonplace with most urban legends, there are multiple potential sources of the hauntings. Reportedly, we have either children who died during the Spanish flu epidemic of 1918. The Spanish flu, of course, killed 20 to 50 million people globally. We don't have an accurate number of deaths in Alabama, but I thought this was an interesting fact, is that in the last 2 weeks of October, I forgot if this was 18 or 19, 37,000 people in Alabama were recorded as having the flu, was having caught the flu that week.
Dang.
Or in that time frame. The other local legend, and this is actually uncorroborated, there was no news articles, and everything that I read was other people saying, hey, we can't find any like actual history of this having occurred, so like just like chill with us. Which in my opinion, if this had happened, this definitely would have been corroborated. But apparently in the 1960s, there was a string of child abductions that occurred in Huntsville. There were no ransom requests for any of the children, and many believed that whoever was doing the kidnapping was not just abducting them, but also killing the children.
Oh boy.
This was apparently proven correct when the skull of a child was found in the rock quarries. Eventually, more skeletal remains were found, along with the corpses of other recently missing children. After the bodies were discovered, the abductions stopped, but the identity of the killer or anyone involved is still unknown or unconfirmed. By 1985, the land where the quarry existed had been donated to the city, and plans were put in place to build Maple Hills Park in that area. Supposedly the exact area where the legend has it that the children's bodies were found.
Of course.
Yeah. It's how convenient. The ghosts are apparently, we won't call it the ghosts. The heightened spiritual activity is particularly active between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m., which is obviously after most children's bedtime. Now, in pictures taken by visitors and ghost hunters, you apparently can see orbs and mists that are around the height of children. Some are even seen in like well lit areas around the playground, especially like where the moving swings are, or going down the slides. Another interesting thing is other people have reported the sounds of mothers calling out to children. And apparently when you stand above the park, I guess there's like a hill with some trees like near it, that people have reported seeing the ghostly figure of a man staring down at the playground.
I dislike that.
Which basically people are saying that's like what the belief is of like the 1960s thing. It's the guy, coming back to like haunt the children or whatever. So if you are interested in visiting the dead children's playground, especially after dark, the cops will now show up and kick anyone out who comes to check on it after dark. So be advised, if you do want to go see it, you do have to be sneaky, or you have to go see it during the day. As well as the Dead Children's Playground on our social media, so be sure to go there and check those out. In addition, if you have any topic suggestions or tips for us, be sure to go to our website at awmpa.com and go to the top where it says topic suggestions and tips and just fill out the information. You do not have to leave a name or your email, but we'd love to hear from you about topics that you'd like to hear from us next. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to today's episode of A Wild Mystery Podcast Appears, recorded and produced by Belle and Ollie.
Please check out all of our social media where we have additional information shared. You can find all of those links on our website at awmpa.com.
We'd love to hear your feedback for our podcast, so be sure to rate and review.
Tune in next week for another episode of A Wild Mystery Podcast Appears.